Hey, thank you for joining me for some more marketing tips for underdog companies and startups. My name's Simon Vincent, I'm the X-CMO. And in this episode, the first on marketing strategy, I'm looking specifically at how to define and refine your competitors. Now, already this might have some of you raising your eyebrows. He's focusing on competitors first. I thought all marketing is about the customer. And you're right, my friend, marketing is fundamentally all about finding your customers. However, experience tells me that it's usually pretty difficult for underdog companies to identify their target audience until they've actually surveyed the existing industry, looking at all the solutions that are already available to their customers and finding their own point of difference. And so I start with adversaries. Now, why do I call them that? Why not competitors? Well, I wanted to be very clear that we need to look beyond the obvious here. After all, in pretty much every industry, there are other companies who make what you make or do what you do, what we often call our competitors. But what about those companies who do not compete on product or service, but nevertheless provide opposition for our customers' attention? W. Chan Kim and Renee Malborn, in their seminal book on entrepreneurship, Blue Ocean Strategy, recommend considering not just your competition, but also alternatives that your customers have. I'm going to read a quote from them. It says, "To fundamentally shift the strategy canvas of an industry, you must begin by reorienting your strategic focus from competitors to alternatives, and from customers to non-customers of the industry. As you shift your strategic focus from current competition to alternatives and non-customers, you gain insight into how to redefine the problem the industry focuses on and thereby reconstruct buyer value elements that reside across industry boundaries." There's a whole lot of buzz phrases there, aren't there? But what I'm going to do is just try and explain that a little bit by using an example that they use, which is that of the Australian company Casella Wines. And they completely upended the US wine industry by looking at their adversaries not simply as being other wine producers, but also the manufacturers of beer, spirits, and ready-to-drink cocktails. In doing so, they managed to avoid the trappings of focusing on tradition and tasting notes, which are the sorts of things that wine producers have wanted to focus on in the past. And instead, they created a fun and non-traditional wine that was easy to drink for everyone. You'll know that wine as Yellowtail. So your job in developing a marketing strategy for your underdog company is to analyze not just your competitors, but also your customers' alternatives, other products or services they might buy that might either replace yours or be seen as being comparable to yours. As an exercise, try focusing in on 3 adversaries. Make 2 of them in industry, i.e. those who sell almost exactly the same products and or services that you do. Because we don't do average, make sure that one of those competitors is the biggest name that you can think of in your industry. After all, that's where we're aiming, right? And the other one should be from outside your direct line of competition. So an alternative product that your customer could spend their money on and might in fact choose to spend their money on rather than yours. Then what you need to do is try to articulate how your company is different from the first 2. This is what's known as positioning in the marketing world. And then try to explain how it is similar to the 3rd non-direct competitor company. Finally, as preparation for choosing an overarching tactical approach later, ask yourself the following questions, indicating on a grid with the options very low, low, high, and very high. Do not, I repeat, do not include medium, the following things. Question 1, what is the cost of my product? This, of course, is a relative thing, and your answer should reflect that. So rather than putting the actual monetary value, you should indicate how you compare to the other companies you've chosen. If appropriate, you can use terms like budget, premium, luxury here. The key thing is that you are pricing yourself within your industry, not in absolute terms. So all cars are expensive items, right? But if your company is Dacia, you can still say that you are on the cheaper side of the automotive industry. Question 2, what is the value of my product? Now, this is a completely different question to what is the cost. It relates to the emotional value your customer is likely to put into buying your product, whatever the cost of it. For example, the emotional value you might put into making the right choice of school for your child will probably be extremely high, even if the school itself is a state school and therefore free of charge. Similarly, any product that has a representative effect on how the customer sees themselves, their identity, their status, things like fashion items here are a big one, they will have a higher value that even if the cost is low of that actual product. Third question to answer: how high is awareness of my product? As a startup entrepreneur or owner of an underdog company, it is perfectly possible that you've created something that is new or created a completely new way of presenting an age-old issue. In those cases, your audience will not yet know how to search for you, even if their lives would be greatly improved by your product or service. I'm always reminded here of the Henry Ford quote where he says, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they'd have said they wanted faster horses. Understanding this at the outset will help you to narrow down very quickly which tactical approach, channels, and style of content you would benefit from most. Alternatively, maybe you're selling bread or financial services or a very powerful blender, in which case you don't need to educate me on what your product is. You simply need to make sure that you come up first when I decide I want to buy your product. Question number 4. How high is awareness of my company? This relates to you specifically, while still comparing yourself to your competitors, of course. After all, if people don't know who you are, they will be less likely to trust you, initially at least. Similarly, if a name brand adversary has a huge reputation and a clear MO when it comes to their marketing, let's say it's Coca-Cola, and every year they run their holidays are coming ad, then understanding that they have that and that you don't will help play into your tactical approach at a later point. Question number 5. How often are people likely to buy my product? If your customers are likely to keep coming back every year, every month, or even every week, this will affect the tactical approach you take. Likewise, if they are likely to only buy once, either because your product the product you sell lasts a long time, or because it's a high cost item, this will have an effect on your tactical approach. Question number 6. How loyal are people likely to be to your company? And again, this is very different to the question about how often will people buy what you do. It's to say that there are some products that we all buy regularly, but which we would be happy to switch out if we were offered a better deal by a competitor. Similarly, if this applies to your competition, this should affect your approach. In the workshops that I run with companies, I help teams of employees work through these and clarify their own thinking. You can find out how to get me to do that, to run a workshop with you on my website, x-cmo.com. But that's it for today. If you know anyone who would benefit from finding these essays, please do share the content. And if you add a review or a comment or whatever too, it'll help a bunch of people who you don't know, but who are equally as in need to find it as well. And if you, yes, you are getting something from them, please do subscribe or follow. My goal is to share a new formation theory essay regularly, so you'll have plenty of content to keep coming back for. Until next time, my name is Simon Vincent. I'm the X-CMO, and I look forward to joining you again soon for another episode focusing on marketing strategy for startups and underdog companies.